That fixes everything right there. Turning the mic on. That might help quite a bit. Welcome to Great Old Ones channel. Here I talk about role playing games. I love role playing games. Tonight we'll be talking about First Edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons again. One of the subjects that we had requested was a little bit about dungeon mastering, setting up games, and creating dungeons and that sort of thing. So we'll start a little bit on that series tonight. We'll talk about some advice that comes out of the First Edition Dungeon Master's Guide from Gary Gygax, of course, about how to design dungeons and things of that nature. Naturally, I couldn't do this. Well, I could do this by myself, but it would only be half the picture. So I'm going to bring on Doomswords again, and him and I will talk about these sorts of things, give you our opinions, and you can take those to the bank and do nothing with them because they're just opinions. But I'll bring him out here without further ado because he's looks like he's peeling the paint off the walls, and I do believe that is still lead paint, so I need to stop him from doing that. So I'll bring him on. Hey, here we go. Wait a minute. Here it comes. There we go. Good George.
Right on. I already ate most of the lead, including
Oh, man.
from the miniatures. I mean,
I
there's a little
figured.
story in the local paper from several years ago. That's why they switched to pewter because I just ate all the lead miniatures.
Oh, gotcha. That's where the gray comes from in your beer. Is that what it is?
That's where
Clearly, I
the
ate a
black
lot of
spots come in
miniatures.
my brain.
All right. Well, welcome back again. We'll talk a little bit more. As you and I discussed, we got some questions about there about uh, good advice on setting games up and putting together good dungeons and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of great advice in the first edition Advanced Dungeon Master's Guide about to do those sorts of things. So I figured we start with page 90 and start working our way through that stuff. Um, Preparing and setting things up and some wisdom on how to get the ball moving on that sort of thing and have it make, well, to a certain degree, sense. Um, let's see. Let me go ahead and turn this banner off because it's kind of in the way. Let's see. First, always got to start out with first. Let's remove that one and put, whoops, where to add the stage. There we go. More great art, right? This was the adventure picture. Of course it is, right? Typical dungeon parties talking to some woman standing there by a lake. We got, looks like two magic users, a horse, a couple of fighters, right? The beginning of the adventure. Clearly, this is a wilderness
Um,
adventure.
yeah, and I just want to say real quick is that this particular piece of artwork is much different than just about anything you'll find in any of the core books, and I think it's interesting. It's more sort of
It's a
high fantasy, right?
Sure, sure. It's got a lot of good imagery and stuff in there. It's a dungeon party preparing to go on an adventure, asking directions from the local narrator. Of course, the local narrator is not going
Right.
to send them in the right direction.
But if it's a dryad, they'll just get trapped in a tree for like 10 years. No big deal.
Well, okay, could be bad news, right? All right, so I'll put this up here. This is what I had come up with. This is from page 90 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. We'll start out with monster populations and placement. Um, if you're, let me click it over to comments here. We got people throwing comments out there. They're probably telling me my mic is still on silent, but here we go. Trapped in a tree. Yes. Trapped in a tree. Dryads are definitely bad news. We got a few watchers in here tonight. That would be great. Fantastic. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Go to Doomswords channel, like and subscribe on his stuff as well. Right? Listen to his stuff. We got other stuff other than just the two together. Okay, if it's an orange tree, I'm okay with that. I suppose so. Oranges aren't too terrible. Oranges would be at least subtropical at the very least. So you'd still be kind of warm. One of the, if you go back to the older games, I recall like Dungeons and Dragons, the main thing was you had a little town and then you ran to the dungeon, and all the monsters and all that kind of stuff were in the dungeon. Maybe you encountered one or two between here and there, but for the most part, the thought wasn't for setting up a whole world or anything like this. This was just a little adventuring corner kind of thing. And then they decided, hey, that's too limiting. Let's go ahead and move on a little bit further than that, and we'll go into expanding some things out, right? How to start building a world that make it a good place for adventurers to go into. And the opening paragraph here kind of lays that sort of thoughts out. As the creator of a milieu, you will have to spend a considerable amount of time developing the population and distribution of monsters in dungeon and wilderness and in urban areas as well. It is highly recommended that you develop an overall scheme for both population and habitation. Right? You're playing, the god at this point in time, setting up the world. That is not to say that a random mixture of monsters cannot be used, simply selecting whatever creatures are at hand from the tables of monsters shown by level of their relative challenge. The latter method does provide a rather fun type of campaign with a Disneyland atmosphere, but long-range play becomes difficult, for the whole lacks rhyme and reason, so it becomes difficult for the DM to extrapolate new scenarios from it, let alone build upon it. Therefore, it is better to use the random population technique only in certain areas, and even then, to do so with reason. This will be discussed shortly. So here is an opening statement here of, yeah, I put out all those tables out there, use them, but should not be the basis for your world. You should plan it all out and build up populations and population centers and stuff like this. Who lives in this forest over here? Isn't it ending just random monster? No, there's where the elves live. They've got these mountains over here where the dwarves have their hideout, and it doesn't necessarily mean there's no cross between them. It's just set up your world in a logical play, gives your players a framework that seems a little more stable that they can latch on to.
Yeah, and if I can make a quick comment here, we've all seen them, right? We've all seen those individuals within the game space and stuff, and it's fine. You can run your game obviously however you want. But we have a couple of camps on sort of the straw man side of this that say, hey, the dice are always right. That's going to do all the heavy lifting, roll everything randomly, and see how it ends up and play that way. And then you have the people saying, oh, that's stupid. Nothing makes any sense. But we already have Gygax himself sort of guiding the direction on this stuff. Right.
Sure.
And yeah.
Right. He doesn't say in here that either one is good or bad. He just says use a blend of the two.
Yeah, and explains to people to pay attention to what it is they're creating if what they're desiring is a long-term play, basically a campaign.
Sure. Like it says here, general monster population will be in its habitat for a logical reason. Right, the environment suits the creatures, and the whole is in balance. Certain areas will be filled with nasty things due to the efforts of some character to protect his or her stronghold. Yes, right. There's where your usefulness for the Bulle come from, is put them around your stronghold to keep enemy soldiers out of the way, right? So monsters don't necessarily have a random distribution. You might find monsters in an area based on somebody brought them there for their protection or something, or you might find monsters in an area because that's their habitat. You could do all of that together and still get away with a great campaign. Let's see, we can skim through a little bit here. Let's see. Natural movement of monsters will be slow, so there'll be no immediate migration to any depopulated area. Now, yes, right? Nature abhors a vacuum. So sooner or later, the monsters are going to realize, hey, wait a minute, somebody killed off that dragon. That is now open territory for us to go claim. So eventually, more monsters will fill into these places. Logically speaking, that should be the way things would run. And that would, right then and there, that very thought helps a good dungeon master to keep things shifting around in his world, gives him a logical flow of why, well, you killed a dragon, but why is this monster there? Well, because the dragon's gone. Now that one wants to take over. It gives you a logical framework to base, movement of monsters and building things in that direction with it. Let's see. Actually, clearing an area, dungeon or outdoors territory might involve many expeditions and much effort, perhaps even a minor battle or two involving hundreds per side. Ooh, orcs, 20 to 200. Nice, right? But when it is all over, the monsters will not magically reappear. Oh, like a video game where they just automatically respawn over there at that corner. We just got to wait for them to show up. It doesn't happen. Right. Nor will it be
Right. The gauntlet monster generators, you know.
right. Nor will it be likely that some other creatures will move into the newly available quarters the next day. Eventually, something is going to realize that is now an open area and want to get there. So, even if you do set up your what they call the domain play and stuff now, your characters build a stronghold. They've cleared the area. Eventually, more monsters are going to come back to try to reclaim it. So there's constantly stuff in there to refresh the game. Logically speaking, that's the way nature works. So that's the way your monsters should basically work. The same sort of thing.
Yeah, and if I can interject real quick, this doesn't only apply. I mean, it's sort of the way we're looking at it. I think it implies outdoor adventures specifically, but this doesn't only apply outdoors. It applies in every aspect
everywhere
of your campaign.
everywhere.
No, yeah,
Right.
Right.
So just
Yeah, you're not gonna. Yeah, the party's not going to go into a room and destroy, a group of monsters and walk out of said room, take a rest somewhere, assuming that there's one afforded to them, and then come back and have the exact same type of monsters or reinforcements immediately and right away. And generally speaking, in a dungeon, I think that the monsters that would populate the place after the main force has been taken out would be from whatever your wandering monster chart is for said dungeon. So it applies to both. Thank you.
Yeah, same sort of thing, right? In the dungeon, it doesn't specify here either way, right? In the dungeon, same thing. You clear out a room, you leave the dungeon, come back a little bit later. Maybe there's a new inhabitant, maybe not this time, but sooner or later, something's going to realize that cozy home is available again to be occupied. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same type of monster again either. It could be anything, right? So
right. Think about a town as an analogy,
yeah.
probably a rather poor one. If your characters go into the town and decide that they're going to kill the blacksmith, they don't come back the next day, and the blacksmith is suddenly replaced. Right? He doesn't like respawn, and neither do monsters in any particular setting unless there's a reason for that to happen.
Well, if you go into town and kill the blacksmith, the problem the next day is not going to be the blacksmith.
No,
it's going to be the city watch.
Right.
Okay. So, well, if you want to play that way, you've always got somebody after you. You've got a reason to go fight, right? Yeah.
Right.
Some good comments coming up in here. Rocking the dice is a factor of describing things in a way that integrates the outcome in a way that seems planned by the DM. So players are saying, of course, that's what would happen, right? Yeah. If you look at it this way, we've got a new monster comes in. You could randomly roll for which one comes to reoccupy that room. It doesn't necessarily have to be one planned by you, right? So you can still use the dice. You can still use the tables. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an advanced kind of topic. Even in like advanced Dungeons and Dragons or any other sort of role playing, but that's an advanced topic, and you should use your imagination and kind of let that be your guide, as well as the knowledge of your own player group, right?
Mm-hmm. It says here, unless the blacksmith was ripping off guards with shoddy steel. Well, that was just because he was reselling the weapons that the player characters were selling to him. That's where the shoddy steel came from. So, yeah. That never happens, right? All right, when player characters begin, they will at first assume that they are the most aggressive types in the area. Not after they've played one or two games. They realize they are not. But new players will think, hey, we're it, right? With respect to characters, of course. This is probably true. You have other characters in the area, of course, and certainly many will be higher level and more capable of combating monsters than are the new player characters. Nonetheless, the game assumes that these characters have other things to do with their time, that they do not generally care to take the risks connected with adventuring, and they will happily allow the player characters to stand the hazards. Um, the characters who do the dirty work are successful. The area will be free of monsters, and the non-player characters will benefit. Right, so you're doing a service for the local area. Meanwhile, the player characters, as adventurers, automatically remove themselves to an area where there are monsters, effectively getting rid of the potential threat their presence poses to the established order. So you clean out the area, you move on. Now there's a vacuum. Right. There is an analogy to the gunfighter lawman of the Wild West, which is not inappropriate. I think they really like Western stuff. I guess did. And he, I think, wrote a game kind of based on that, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah. In some cases, player characters will establish strongholds nearby, which will help to maintain the stability of the area, thus becoming part of the establishment. Your milieu might actually encourage such settlement interaction if you favor politics in your campaign. The depopulation and removal to fresh challenge areas has an advantage in most cases. I like this, but I like giving them the opportunity. Right, if they want to build a stronghold in areas and stuff that they clean out, okay, go for it. That's what you want to do. But I'm not. If they want to wander off and go to another section, by all means, do that too. Try to give them a lot of options to keep them fresh, keep them thinking, keep them interested.
Absolutely. And in settlement building and stuff like that, becoming a lord and, having your retainer and your castle and all that. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen as often as it probably should in AD&D, but that's more a challenge of keeping the player characters alive long enough and the DM working with them long enough to establish a long-running campaign. The experience points and level thresholds being what they are, that's often going to take years of play and keeping everyone interested, right?
Yeah. So you got to keep it fresh, even though they're not. The excitement of getting a new level isn't going to happen for a while. If you keep things fresh, keep the challenges and stuff out there for them to want to come back to it eventually, that'll happen too. Yeah. I like this comment here. Normalizing random outcomes, what keeps it fun for the DM, is very challenging sometimes. And to help with this, and we'll probably need to cover this sometime too, in the second edition, not the second edition, the Dungeon Monster Manual 2. Let me get it straight here. Monster Manual 2, they have examples of how to set up your own random encounter charts. So you could normalize random encounters that way by creating your own charts that are appropriate for that area instead of just using the ones that are in the book.
It's worth mentioning too,
Yeah.
which that was a great point, but it's worth mentioning that's sort of in AD&D, that's the definitive version of Wandering Monster Tables that supersedes what was in the DMG. I feel like a lot of time was spent on that, and it incorporates the Monster Manual, Fiend Folio, and Monster Manual 2 in a sort of adjusted way. But it's well worthwhile, and it's worth buying that book or owning that book or PDF or whatever, just for that section even.
Right, because you don't have to use all those monsters in any of this stuff. You can do whatever it is that you want to use. Make up your own, even if you wanted to, but come up with some logical statistics and stuff for them, and frequency and that sort of thing, and then plop them into one of those tables for yourself. The stuff that was in the Dungeon Master's Guide was just examples that he used for his world that he put out there for you to use or not use as your whim. Yeah. Let's see what else we got. You as a DM probably have a number of different exciting dungeons and wilderness and urban settings which are tied to the whole of the milieu. I've got a lot more dungeons than I have anything else, because that was my favorite style as a kid, and that's my favorite style to play now. And I wish somebody would run my dungeons for me so I could get in and play them, but that's okay. I live vicariously through my players. For example, my main dungeon is now up to 66 pages of maps. So, and it's ever growing. but I've got a lot of scattered other ruins and stuff in the area. I've got some wilderness areas and stuff set aside. There's a town, a couple of towns that players go to. The local town doesn't have all the resources they need, so they have to go further along to a city to get those extra resources and stuff. So there's an expanse of territory for them to move around and adventure in. But my Monday night group hasn't wandered a whole lot farther than 8 or 10 miles away from that one town, and they've run into a whole lot of trouble out there, and so they're there to clear things out. Oh, here's a good one. Excellent. I need to copy this one down. That's an excellent. Where's the hellhound? Is that one of the? I need to add hellhounds into that category. Explosion dog, but also breathe fire.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing that all of these are in my house at the moment. Can we get an exploding ferret on there somewhere?
Put that one in there.
You know,
well, it depends on what you fed it, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. John Collins, dungeons are the best. Yes, sir, John Collins. I certainly agree. I absolutely love dungeons. That's kind of where I cut my teeth as a 14-year-old playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time. Was in a dungeon that was 10 levels deep, huge expanse, and we never got past like the first or second before we had to roll up new characters. We threw bodies at that one like we were Chinese wave attacks going at that dungeon. Let's see. Variety of settings easily done by sketching the outline of your world's history, right? So you got to come up with, it shouldn't be a static place. There should be some dynamism and stuff going on. It should have a history to it, where things have been, where things are going to, so that world events make sense for you, and it makes sense for certain. We'll use monsters as a general term here. They could be, a population of elves or a population of dwarves or other humans and stuff further along, but we use the generic term monsters as to be opponents of the player characters. It could be those all over the place, and some of them are in decline, some of them are in advance, and all this kind of stuff. Plan all these sorts of things out, even if you only do a high level, right? Plan all that sort of stuff out so that when you plop monsters and things down in your map in an area, it kind of makes sense. And it helps you keep track of these sorts of things rather than just writing notes if it makes sense. So sketch out outlines of your world history, establishing power bases, setting up conflicts, distributing the creatures, bordering states, and so forth. Gives the basis for a reasoned, if not totally logical in terms of our real world approach. Multitude of planes and alignments are given for such a purpose, although they also serve to provide fresh places to adventure and establish conflicts between player characters as well. Put things out there for this is where these guys are going to go around. If everything is static, then they're going to, for lack of a better word, they're going to get bored with it pretty soon because everything's kind of flavorless and the same.
Yeah, and it's I think it's worth mentioning here that the planar stuff, and you can find Gygax using this. You can find it in obviously the original Castle Greyhawk and whatnot, which obviously we've never seen, but you'll find it in Dungeon Land, Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, in these modules. And that's a good way of, no matter the multiplanar stuff, no matter what level the characters are, you change the playing field for them entirely. And planar types of adventures and stuff are a great tool in the DM's toolbox.
Yep. Certain pre-done modules might serve in your milieu, and you should consider their inclusion in light of your overall schema. If they fit smoothly into the diagram and milieu, by all means use them, but always alter them to include the personality of your campaign so the mesh is perfect, right? Oh man, I can't use that module. It was written for World of Greyhawk. So fix it, change it, adapt it to yours. Use it. It's a lot of work that's already been done. Why recreate the wheel? Use it again. Adapt that for your particular world. Take that module and tweak it a little bit to fit what goes on with your environment. Save yourself a whole lot of work. Right. Oh, here we go. I guess I need to go grab a bottle of liquor off the shelf. Yeah.
I'm going to try to pay attention to them and drink every time that I say them now. But that's going to ultimately result in a lot more of them. Or maybe I should say whatnot every time I drink. I don't
Something
know.
like that, right? And then we'll,
Yeah.
this will be, 7-minute video.
Yeah. And I notice this stuff when I'm editing these things that we do. I
Oh,
notice
yeah.
it.
So you subject me to them and edit them out for your own stream. Got it.
Yes, even off. Whenever I think of even the word what. Ah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, there we go. Yes. Likewise, fit monsters and magic so as to be reasonable with the scope of their milieu and the particular facet of it concerned. Alter creatures freely, remembering balance. Hit dice, armor class, and attacks and damage, magical and sonic powers are all mutable. Right. And alter, and after players become used to the standard types, a few ringers will make them a bit less sure of things. Devising a few creatures unique to your world is also recommended. As a DM, you are capable of doing a proper job of it, provided you have had some hours of hard experience with rapacious players. Then you will know not to design pushovers and can resist the temptation to develop the perfect player character killer. As an example of this, one of my favorite monsters, I didn't invent the monster, but I modified it. I love the Hydra. Hydra is a fantastic monster. But everybody knows all about Hydras now, so I made Hydras that spit. Oh, it's a Hydra. If you stay out of the range of the heads, they can't get you. No, my Hydras now spit poison at you or spit acid at you, or whatever
Awesome.
it is, right? So, hey, that's not in the book. Well, no, it's not in the book. This is my monster, right? What are you doing reading the book? You know?
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And that's one thing without going off on a sidetrack too much. That's bizarre to me in the original Monster Manual, and that's because most of that stuff has been lifted, or at least a lot of it has, out of other versions of D&D. Is that sometimes they specify within a monster entry that there's a range of hit dice. The Ankeg would be a perfect example of that. There doesn't need to be a range of hit dice really on most of the monsters unless there's a different effect with them, say with dragons and ages and hit dice.
Yeah.
So you can basically, what Gygax is telling you here is take any monster, okay, and assign whatever hit dice are necessary to it. They're all mutable characteristics, like he said. Whether that's the hit dice or the armor class or any of those things, it's all mutable in service of the integrity of your game or whatever it is you want your game to represent.
Right. Right. And well, this one paragraph here would probably be everything you really need to know, because he lays out, in order to offer a bit more guidance, this single example of population and placement will suffice. Maybe I should have just read that. We could have commented on that. In a border area of hills and wild forest where but few human settlements exist, there is a band of very rich but hard-pressed dwarves. They and the humans are hard-pressed because of the existence of a large tribe of orcs. The latter have invited numbers of ogres to join them. For the resistance of the men and dwarves to the orcs' looting and pillaging has cost them not a few warriors. The orcs are gaining. More areas nearby are becoming wilderness, and into abandoned countryside and deserted mines, the ferocious and dark-dwelling monsters of wilderness and the dungeons daily creep. Right. The brave party of adventurers comes into a small village to see what is going on, for they have heard that all is not well hereabouts. With but little help, they must then overcome the nasties by piecemeal tactics, being careful not to arouse the whole general warfare by appearing too strong. This example shows you to develop a logical and ordered placement of major forces of monsters, to develop habitat complexes and modules of various sorts, abandoned towns, temples, etc. It also allows some freewheeling mixture of random critters to be stuck here and there to add uncertainty and spice to the standard challenge of masses of orcs and ogres. You, of course, can make it as complex and varied as you wish to suit your campaign and players, and perhaps a demon or devil and some powerful evil clerics are in order. Bam. Now, in my experience and from everything I've read, a whole lot of other people agree to this. The prime example of this paragraph all to itself in how helping a dungeon master set up a good game is B2, the Keep on the Borderland.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. And, and I think you mentioned when we were talking, it might have been privately or talking in videos, but
Mhm.
Village of Hamlet is another perfect example. And I think that's an example that you had brought
Mhm.
up. Um, but regardless, this one paragraph, maybe could have been split into a couple of paragraphs, but that's the nature of high gag accent. But this one paragraph, if you just used this one paragraph out of a 248 page book or something like that, you'd be you could use this for the rest of your life as a DM
Mhm.
as guidance on how to set up and make things happen. There's a lot of wisdom in here and a lot of imagination, and it's probably because he was well read. But I like this. It's
Yeah,
gold.
it is. It's an excellent example. It's a good, hey, there's your template. Follow this. Alter it as you see fit for whatever you like to do in your world. But here's a good starting template to use if you're new at this and you wonder, well, how do I get my start? What do I need to start with? I think that was one of the questions that we had on an earlier stream too. How do we start this? Bam. Here's a paragraph right here. The start is already done for you. Take this and run with it and make it all yours.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even take out you could take anything that's specific to this paragraph: warriors, dwarves, elves, humans, orcs, ogres. Wipe those out and replace them with whatever you want. And
Mm-hmm.
and the premise is still here. It doesn't have to be mountains. It could be forest. It doesn't. It could be grasslands, marsh, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful advice.
Yeah. Halflings and gnomes are being harried by kobolds, right?
Right.
Bam. It's the same thing, but it just tweaked for your environment. And it's an excellent, excellent, excellent starting point. If you've got nothing else, this one right here, you do this, your players will think you're an expert dungeon master. And even if you're brand new, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, just as you have matrices for each of your dungeon levels, prepare like data sheets for all areas of your outdoors and urban areas. When monsters are properly placed, note on a key sheet who, what, and when with regard to any placement. It is certainly more interesting and challenging for players when they find that monsters do not spring up like weeds overnight. Oh, man. Yes, there's our, what's that, the random zombie generator or whatever it is the jokes that you get in these video games. People, they want the constant pressure and stuff, and you'll lose something with that. In dungeons or
Right.
elsewhere, once all dragons in an area are slain, they have run out of dragons. The likelihood of one flying by becomes virtually nil. The frontier moves, and bold adventurers must move with it. The movement can, of course, be towards them as inimical forces roll over civilization. Make it all fit together in your plan, and your campaign will be assured of long life. Because it's just a constant flow of stuff going on. Yeah. It shouldn't be static. If it's static, it's going to end fairly soon.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and something that I wanted to say about that is it kind of points to the West Marches style, right? Where you
Sure.
expand the frontier out towards the sort of the proverbial West, and then as far as you can make it, and then come back and numerous multiple excursions over time,
Hmm.
keep pushing that boundary further along, and that's a valid and fun play style inspired by the original works. And one other thing that you gain that he didn't specifically say, but I believe is intended, is that you get the verisimilitude. the players expect. They expect that once they've slain all dragons who are layering creatures, that a dragon's not just going to come out of nowhere, right? They
Mhm.
expect to have a grasp and an understanding of sort of a realistic perspective of the world, if that
Now
makes
we need
sense.
to go find more. They're not going to come to us. Well, to a certain degree.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But, again, nature abhors a vacuum. What's moving into that vacuum is the pressure of your civilization behind you, pushing you forward more, right? If you want to switch to urban adventures, just let it come, right? But if you'd rather keep going after the monsters, then you need to push out with it. Yeah. Another part of this, good advice in this book for newer dungeon masters and some even older dungeon masters need to heed this warning and stuff as well. Placement of monetary treasure, right? Since we are using gold for XP, putting money out there makes a big deal. Ooh, okay, let's see. Good combat. Comment here. Right. This section is critical for initially answering the questions what is an adventure when first getting acquainted with gaming back in the day. Right. Because we didn't have any other examples out there how this is done. This was the book that did it. So was your example of how to set things up. We all didn't have the luxury of living in Lake Geneva and going to playing at Gary's house. Yeah. Let's see. Ooh, Tiamat. I guess Cooley wants me to bring Tiamat into the Monday night game. I guess I'll have to oblige him. Yeah. Well, isn't interestingly though, let's look at this statement right here. The Saturday morning cartoon Dungeons and Dragons, that was a bad dungeon master. He set a bunch of first level characters against Tiamat right off the bat.
Yeah, and they weren't even like real world participants. They were just like, hey, you and me, roller coaster, get shipped off, and there's Tiamat, there's Venger. Hey, at least he had them fighting each other, right? So you could run away,
Oh, and that's the killer DM
and you
right.
got
I'm
one magic
surprised.
item.
One magic item. Yeah. And that was me a little stingy with magic items. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
See, placement of monetary treasure. Wealth abounds. It is simply awaiting the hand bold and strong enough to take it. This precept is basic to fantasy adventure and gaming. Can you imagine Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser without a rich prize to aim for? Conan without a pouch full of rare jewels to squander? And are not there dragons with great hoards, tombs with fantastic wealth and fell guardians, rapacious giants with spoils, dwarven mines brimming with gems, leprechauns? Ooh, what happened? Oh, we need to bring poor Yang in here. Leprechauns with pots of gold. He is on a leprechaun kick these days, yes. Why? The list goes on and on. The foregoing is, of course, true, but the latter is not as simple, or the matter is not as simple as it might seem on the surface. First, we must consider the logic of the game by adventuring, slaying monsters, or outwitting opponents, and by gaining treasure, the characters operating within the milieu advance in ability and gain levels of experience. While AD&D is not quite so simplistic as other such games are regarding such advancement, it nonetheless relies upon the principle of adventuring and success thereat to bestow such rewards upon player characters and henchmen alike. It is therefore incumbent upon the creator of the milieu and the arbiter of the campaign, the dungeon master, to follow certain guidelines and charges placed upon him or her by these rules, and to apply them with intelligence in the spirit of the whole as befits the campaign milieu to which they are being applied. He apparently got paid by the word for this particular book.
I was just gonna say, if you want like a primer on High Gygaxian, you can't do better than this here. I noticed he used rapacious twice within the same thing, which is kind of a no-no. But I mean, they're at
He probably dropped his
um,
thesaurus in the middle of this paragraph. So just I'll use that
yeah,
word
yeah.
again.
And the other one that caught me, and are not there dragons with great hordes, um,
Mhm.
and are not there,
Yes,
yeah, High Gygaxian, and
of
it's
course.
beautiful.
All right, a brief perusal of the character experience point perusal. Yeah. current experience point totals necessary to advance in levels makes it abundantly clear that an underlying precept of the game is that the amount of treasure obtainable by characters is graduated from small to large as experience levels increase. This most certainly does not uh, intimate or suggest, intimate, see, you could have used just the word suggest, that the greater treasures should be in the hundreds of thousands of gold pieces in value, at least not in readily transportable form in any event, but that subject will be discussed a bit later. First and foremost, we must consider the placement of the modest treasures which are appropriate for the initial stages of a campaign, right? If you're learning to be a player, handing a character a 2,500 gold piece gem is not the way to show him how to advance in a level. He's going to automatically get a fast level real quick and really not have done much for it. Yeah, all monsters would not and should not possess treasure. The treasure types given in the monster manual are the optimums and are meant to consider the maximum number of creatures guarding them. Many of the monsters shown as possessing some form of wealth are quite unlikely to have any at all. This is not a contradiction in the rules, but an admonition to the DM not to give away too much. Any treasure possessed by weak low level monsters will be trifling compared to what numbers of stronger monsters might guard. So, in distributing wealth amongst creatures which inhabit the upper levels of dungeons, dungeon like areas, as well as for petty monsters dwelling in small numbers in the wilderness, assign it accordingly. The bulk of such treasures will be copper pieces and silver. Perhaps there will be a bit of ivory or a cunningly crafted item worth a few gold pieces. Yes, they may have 100 gold pieces worth of treasure, but it is a huge, heavy sack of copper pieces. Your plan as a low level character is how do I get all that weight back to take advantage of that treasure? How do we get this to where it's going to be useful for us? And that gets your players to start thinking and thinking out the box and planning and those sorts of things. Right? Shellback Bow, in my experience, referees have swung the other way and give almost no treasure. Um, I've played with some guys that were rather kind of stingy with treasure and stuff. But remember, the treasure types in the monster manual. We need to do an episode on that kind of stuff too, where we'll talk about that sort of thing and how that thing works. Those are suggestions for the maximum of that creature. If there are 10 of them, 1 to 10, 10 would possess that total treasure. If there's only one, he might have 1/10 of what's listed in there as a treasure. So, the 100 gold pieces is what's listed as a treasure for that particular thing, but there's only one of them there. He might have maybe 10 gold pieces. And he just spent 3 of them in the village last week buying his own supplies. So,
Right,
you can
right,
be stingy to a certain
and
degree.
yeah, yeah, and you can also be
Yeah.
um you can also award more than is necessary to see what happens. If we remember I think the cautionary tale is here, don't give out too much because it's going to lead to sort of the implosion of your campaign. But I
Mm-hmm.
agree with Shellback Bow and Cooley's follow up response that um, as long as you're aware of that and sort of the balance that that's going to create
Mm-hmm.
within your individual game, it's certainly fine also to give more than than what might normally be had, as long as you remember the concept that it's a resource management game, but particularly at low levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people do swing a little too far into the low magic, uh, mudcore style, grimdark style of doing things, and I've been guilty of that in the past. But players like to get magic items, they like to get money, they like to get jewelry, they like to get gems, and as they go up in level, you have to make sure you have to consider training costs and upkeep costs, plus the carousing and stuff that a PC might do. because they're sometimes not very wise in the way that they spend their hard-earned gains. Um, that you need to make sure that the players, for the most part, have just enough to want to go out again, but not enough to stop them from being able to go out again. Right? There's nothing worse than gaining a level and not having the gold pieces necessary. And then what often happens is the DM is like, okay, well, I need the player characters to be able to advance a level. So maybe there's this side deal that this particular character has going on with the temple where there's some a band of friendly knights or whatever who will happen to train them for free, and all sorts of machinations to avoid the fact that treasure isn't being handed out or considered on the scale of what's required by the game mechanics.
Here, I
That's
wanted to bring.
rambling, but thank you.
No. I wanted to bring this up and related to what you're talking about here. Let me zoom in on a little bit from the section on creating a party. Come on, give me zoom on that one. Creating party on the spur of the moment. If the party is generally above 5th level and going into a hazardous area, or if the party is generally above 8th level, then you might determine it advantageous to award from 1 to 4 miscellaneous items according to the following list. Large groups are less likely to need such items. Higher level characters are more likely to have them despite numbers. Selection can be by you or the party as you deem best. You may add or delete items as inspired, but remember these are shown to maintain low key power. So here in the creating of the party on the spur of the moment section, if you just grab some random players put together and you want to have some items, in this paragraph here it says if you have a hazardous game, give them a little more. And it's in another section, but it kind of fits in with what we were talking about there for the campaign design, right? If
Yeah.
yeah, like you were saying, if you don't be afraid to give out more if you think it's warranted or needed, right?
Right. And in one good way, I mean, provided you have the materials at at your disposal or whatever, one good way to sort of judge um, how much characters should have per level, look at the pre-gens in any module of the time period, whether that be Giant series, Drow series, um, whether that be even later things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even stuff like Baltron's Beacon, Ravenloft, a lot of the officially published stuff and the tournament stuff, the A series, and what I didn't say it. I'll drink anyway. But in the A series, there's a whole bunch of pre-gens, and they have
Mm-hmm.
generally a pretty hefty, some plus twos, an occasional plus three, a plus one. I've played in many, many games where getting a plus two weapon or shield or armor is basically almost unheard of. I mean, how much is it going to hurt to give your players, characters, something that might be a little bit better than the plus one, right? It's not going to hurt much. It's going to be a 5% swing either way, which you
Mm-hmm.
can balance out on the back end.
Well, I mean, look at what they did. We'll go back to our Keep on the Borderlands. Prices in that module are a little higher than they were in the book, right? So he built that in there too. They were going to get maybe a little bit more money, but make things a little more expensive. That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. The whole point is to make them run out of money, so they have to go back to the dungeon to get more. Let's see. Electrum will be the most unusual. Now, maybe when he read this, but I read an article on Electrum was actually fairly common amongst the Greeks as far as um, a coinage and stuff went. Right? Gold rare, yes, gold is fairly rare, and scarcer still will be platinum piece or a small gem. Platinum pieces, this I don't recall ever reading anything about platinum anywhere in history. I don't know where they came up with platinum as a coin or something. Maybe why didn't they need something else, right? But they added it to it. Or a small gem. Rarest of all treasure of treasures, a magic item is detailed hereafter. Placement of magic items. And we'll cover that too. If some group of creatures actually has a treasure of 11 gold pieces, another will have 2,000 coppers and yet a third nothing save a few rusty weapons. Of course, all treasure is not in precious metals or rare or finely made substances. Is not a full suit of armor of great value? What about a supply of oil, a vial of holy water, weapons, provisions, animals? The upper levels of a dungeon need not be stuffed like a piggy bank to provide meaningful treasures to the clever player character. It, a lot of my loot and stuff that I have out there, there's hunting traps as part of it, tools, things of that nature that are really useful. And if you don't have to spend your money on it, then that's more gold pieces that you can carry away, right? So anything could be considered a useful treasure if your players can think of a useful way to use it on the adventure.
Yeah, for sure. And there's dungeon
Yeah,
dressing tables in there, and I'm sure we'll go
like so back.
in the
Yeah,
DMG rather that we'll go through at some point. Um, but there's value to be had in mundane items. I think is
yeah,
what he's getting at here. As you
exactly.
go up in level, maybe not necessarily as much, right? Because you can just buy that stuff, or you've already gathered up a hoard of it.
Well,
But you never
yeah,
know.
there's a good comment here. Platinum wasn't really considered valuable until the 18th century, so it was weird. I always loved it, Electrum most. What was it? The Romans called it some type of silver or something because they thought it was another form of silver. Yeah, I can't remember. I'm old and I've slept since then. So, but something like that. So, assign each monster treasure or lack thereof with reason. The group of brigands has been successful of late, and each has a few coppers left from roistering, while their leader actually has a small sum of silver hid away, coupled with salvaged armor, weapons, and any odd supplies or animals they might have around. This will be a rich find indeed. The giant rats have nothing at all save a nasty, filthy bite. But the centipedes living beneath a pile of rotting furniture did for an incautious adventurer some years ago, and his skeletal remains are visible still, one hand thrust beneath the debris of the nest. Hidden from view is a silver bracelet with an agate, the whole thing being valued at 20 gold pieces. Thus, intelligent monsters, or those which have an affinity for bright, shiny objects, will consciously gather and hoard treasures. Others will possibly have some as an incidental remainder of their natural hunting or self defense or aggressive behavior or whatever. Naturally, some monsters will be so unfortunate as to have nothing of value at all, despite their desire to the contrary. But these creatures might know of other monsters whom they hate and envy who do have wealth. I think the only, what's a good word for it? The only contradiction to this one is the only monster that has its own treasure chest is the mimic.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I love mimics too. It's a fun monster to run with, right? It doesn't have to be a
Right.
treasure, but that seems to be the one that they can use to great advantage to eat the most meals with, right?
Yeah, and it's important for people to realize also that the mimic is written like in the monster manual. That's not necessarily that's the normal mimic, but the killer mimic is implied and kind of statted out, right?
Right,
So
right.
you've got the normal mimic, you've got a friendly one, all right, and then you have the killer mimic.
And another example of this here is it's written right even the monster manual for a monster and what treasure it may have. The roper doesn't really all it cares about is a meal.
Yes.
Doesn't really care anything about um, the treasures and stuff of the creatures it kills. It just happens to need it swallows platinum pieces for whatever reason and gems that it holds in its gizzard. I guess that's what it uses to grind up its prey or the bones of its whatever it is that it hunted and eaten. So they have treasure that are inside them, but it's not putting them there as a means of safekeeping. Those are the items that it particularly uses. So there's a good example right there of a monster that doesn't care for treasure, but that may have some.
or another one, an obvious one. And I was hoping you were going for the Roper, but the gelatinous cube, right?
Yeah,
And it just picks up whatever you happen to drop a coin in a pile of Jello, and it stays there, until you dump out the Jello.
but on the same token, be sensible about what items that they can be found in your um, gelatinous cube. Yes, it may have a sword floating around inside it. Oh, fantastic! We just picked up a +1 magical sword, but the gelatinous cube's acids have dissolved the leather and wrappings for the handle, so it is unusable until you bring it back to town and have a new hilt formed for it. Bam, right? You've given them a treasure, it's useless for them until they can make an improvement or something to it. And it makes sense in a logical manner why that is. So they get something, right? But now they've got to figure out what to do with it. That's another good way of using a way to do with some of your treasures is give them some things and I got to figure out what to do with it. Right? Make them start thinking, make them use their imagination. This is a game of the imagination. Don't give them everything they need on a silver platter. Well, yeah, but make them have to go trade in the silver platter. How's that? Yeah. Let's see. More inaccessible regions, there will be monsters, whether due to numbers or individual prowess is immaterial. These creatures will have more treasure. So your um, dragon doesn't need to be close to civilization. It should be a little further out. It should be an expedition to get to it because he's going to have more. That's just the nature of what they do. Um, these creatures will have more treasure, at least those with any at all. Copper will give way to silver, silver to electrum, electrum to gold. Everyday objects which can be sold off for a profit, the armor and weapons and such like, will be replaced by silks, brocades, tapestries, and similar items. Ivory and spices, furs and bronze statues, platinum, gems and jewelry will trickle upwards from the depths of the dungeon or in from the fastness of the wilderlands. But hold, Gygaxian, this is not a signal to begin
Exclamation mark.
throwing heaps of treasure at players as you were some mad Midas hating what he has created by his touch. Always bear in mind the effect that the successful gaining of any treasure or set of treasures will have upon the player characters and the campaign as a whole. Consider this example. Here's another good. I love him with his examples. These must be things out of
Yes.
his own game.
Well, and it's interesting because if you're in the tech field or programming field or probably in just general textbooks, consider the following is an often used kind of way when I'm doing technical writing, which I don't do much of anymore. I always do that. Consider the following: if I've spelled out something that's a little difficult to understand, lead in with an example that's quite detailed and let the reader draw the conclusion. And he was good at this. Very good.
Good comment here.
We got a lot of good comments here.
We constantly get good comments. We've got some great audience
Yes,
that
we do.
comes in, gives us
Amazing
some comments that
audience.
we need to comment on. Stephen
I want to play
Kennedy,
D&D with all these guys.
I would love to. It'd be fantastic. As soon as the lottery commission realizes that I'm supposed to win the lottery, that I'll make that happen. I'll rent a whole,
Yes,
whole floor of a
yes.
hotel in Vegas and say anybody wants to come out and play, let me send you a ticket. Come on out, bring your family, let them go play at the pool. Yeah.
Right.
Back in the early '80s, we would cut
Yes, we
open the
gutted
creature to collect
everything.
our treasure. Was this how you played back in the day? Yeah, we gutted everything. We cleaned it out, cut it open.
Yeah,
We
what was it?
collected the
That old
hides to try and bring back to salvage and stuff like that as well. Everything. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, wasn't it that old Dungeon Master game too? Where you could eat the monsters and cut them apart and stuff. It's been a while. I'm sure somebody way back from the '80s or whatever
Oh, I don't
will
remember
correct
that.
me if it's wrong.
There is a
Yeah,
dungeon
the first
cookbook
one was
now. I
the
don't know if you
Dungeon
noticed that.
Master.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's a dungeon cookbook out there now. I don't know if you know about it.
I haven't seen it.
It's a literal one, and they use real world items, but this is your
Right.
mutton stew kind of thing. But it's yeah. That's exactly right. Roman times, it was electrum, literally called electrum, silver and gold alloy. This is where the idea come, I wager. Yes, exactly right. From what I understand, they would adulterate. There's a good Gygaxian word for you. The gold with silver because it would stretch it further, make it go further along. You could get more money out of it, and certain um, kings would regulate how much had to be in it, and it would all have to be collected up again and redistributed and stuff for each change of regime and stuff like this. There's another thing for your campaign, right? You're worried about what your characters are going to do with that sack of gold when they get to town. Well, it's got the wrong denomination on that coin. They cannot use this in town. It is illegal to do so. They have to go to the money changer, pay the tax on it. Bam, they're losing money, right? And now you have to exchange all the coins for the realms coins and all that kind of stuff. There's good ways of getting your characters to spend and use their money, so they have to go back and get more to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also wonder if in the Roman case, I mean, it's a little bit off topic, if making that alloy helped to avoid like coin clipping and stuff like that. I don't know. I want to look into that.
So the coin clipping, what really did that was milling. Milling didn't come out until the Renaissance. So we're giving
Oh,
things
okay.
away here for any potential players that are listening to the game, right? Before you spend your coins, do some coin shaving, because if you're using it true um, to the era, right, medieval fantasy game, the milling didn't happen until the Renaissance. So you would have just straight edge coins, and if you would do some shaving over time, you could have collected enough gold dust or whatever to uh, bring back into town as, oh, we just found this panning. Oh yeah, sure you did. So we gave away too much information right there to potential players.
Yeah.
Yeah, the alloy happened naturally often. Yes, it did. Or sometimes they used it as a blend. It was unable to separate the gold and silver. Not that it couldn't happen. It was very difficult. You didn't have the fine forges and stuff usually at the time to get it separated out at the right temperatures. But yeah, and being the fact that it was often natural stuff as well was really great. Um, let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's our example. We've gotten off track. We'll have to talk about the example now. A pair of exceedingly large, powerful, and ferocious ogres has taken up abode in a chamber at the base of a shaft which gives to the land above. From here, they raid both the upper lands and the dungeons round about. These creatures have accumulated over 2,000 gold pieces in wealth, but it is obviously not in a pair of 1,000 gold piece gems, right? Rather, they have gathered an
Right.
assortment of goods whose combined value is well in excess of 2,000 gold nobles, the coin of the realm, right? Rather than stocking a treasure which the victorious player characters can easily gather and carry to the surface, you maximize the challenge by making it one which the ogres would naturally accrue in the process of their raiding. There are many copper and silver coins in a large locked iron chest. There are pewter vessels worth a fair number of silver pieces. An inlaid wooden coffer worth 100 gold pieces alone holds a finely wrought silver necklace worth an incredible 350 gold pieces. Food and other provisions scattered about amount to another 100 or so gold nobles value, and one of the ogres wears a badly tanned fur cape, which will fetch 50 gold pieces nonetheless. Finally, there are several good helmets used as drinking cups, right? Of course, right? A british and a two-handed sword with a silver wire wrapped around its hilt and a lapis lazuli pommel to make it worth 3 times its normal value, which complete the treasure. If the adventurers overcome the ogres, they must still recognize all of the items of value and transport them to the surface. What is left behind will be taken by the other residents of the netherworld in no time at all, so the bold victors have quite a task before them. It did not end with the mere slaying of the ogres, right? That's it. Don't give them a handful of coins for them to carry out of there. Give them some things for them to think about. How are they going to get it out of there? How are they going to get back to town? How can they get money for this to get the XP value out of it? spend it, those sorts of things. Make the fight is only part of the challenge.
Yeah, in at the risk of sounding like overly subservient to this particular text or whatever, you could almost do an entire stream just on this, right? So there's a lot of valuable advice here.
Hmm.
Don't make it easy to get the stuff out of the treasure. Once you've slain the monsters or they've run away or whatever, it's not necessarily easy, and it shouldn't be, to take away their stuff, a couple of thousand gold piece gems or whatever.
Hmm.
But also make the players think to look at this stuff and determine if it has any outstanding circumstances that will make it worth more. Um, Exercise the player's creativity and your own
Hmm.
to find ways to make these things different from the more mundane items that you might normally find. So, hey, you find a two-handed sword. I detect magic. It's not magical. Well, you know, send somebody up there, look at it more closely. And it sort of lays the blueprint for making magical items exceptionally exceptional, right? So, and I love what he did here, because it's a mental exercise to say, hey, maybe I'll give them a sword that's not magical, but I'll have the hilt wrapped in gold wire, and the pommel, lapis lazuli is
Right.
inserted into it, and whatnot, and it just really makes even mundane items very interesting. And there's nothing wrong with taking what 20 gold piece two-handed sword and tripling its value to 60,
Hmm.
quadrupling its value to 80 or whatever.
Even if nobody in the group can use it, there is a treasure. It is heavy. They could sell it, so they got
Yes.
to figure out how do we get it back to town successfully, right? It
And
it
that's how you
adds to the.
develop relationships, right?
Mhm.
I'm sorry if I cut you off, but that's
No,
how you develop relationships in town with the NPCs, whatever town that may be, is by
right.
buying and selling, and it affords role playing opportunities.
Sure does. Exactly. Really does. And that's the whole point of the game is to do some role playing and stuff. How are we going to get this stuff? How are we going to trade it? How are we going to assume it? And it shouldn't be just, oh, well, my charisma is, 17. Here's my die roll. That's not the way things should work. Talk it out. Play
No,
that. Play that. Um,
yeah, yeah, and if the players, maybe somebody has a secondary skill, and I highly recommend using secondary skills in AD&D, even if you're not using later things like non-weapon proficiencies. Roll on the secondary skill table for every single player character.
mhm.
Early DMG, which we've talked about before. Maybe somebody's a jeweler, you know,
Yep.
maybe somebody's an appraiser.
So they have inside knowledge.
And
Exactly right. Yeah.
exactly, and you can use the secondary skills without making necessarily a single roll.
Hmm.
It's just part of my background. My particular thief came from a family that was involved in the pawn trade or something like that. So I happen to end up with appraisal, and I can look at these things and see their value. And as a thief, I'm not going to necessarily key the party into the true value. I might, make sure
Right.
to skim a little,
Oh, that's not worth
and
nothing.
then
I'll
since,
carry it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then since I'm the one who happens to work with the fence and I know him well in this small town, you know,
Right.
I'll
He's
make
my
sure you
cousin.
guys are
Yeah.
happy, but I pocket a little bit.
Right. Well, and so there you go. Some role playing opportunities and some means of getting useful items to the players that aren't necessarily money. A two-handed sword is even a mundane one is still insanely useful for a fighter, for example. Right. So ceremonial swords, right? Bedazzled, ornate display swords. Yes, those ceremonial swords doesn't necessarily mean that those ceremonial swords are useless, though, either. Right. Right. But it could be a lot more money.
And it
Those swords
also doesn't
are.
necessarily mean that any
Yeah.
weapons grade sword is not going to have some ornate stuff on it.
Oh yeah.
Consider An adventurer, I've got my fighter. He's like 6th level. I've got some extra money, assuming the DM has given me the money I need and whatnot. And I might just happen to go and be like, you know what? I'd like to wrap the hilt in gold, and because I've got some money to blow, and insert this 2,000 gold piece ruby into the pommel. You know.
Yeah. In general, people will decorate their stuff. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and this thing right here, the cell phone, is a perfect example. People will decorate their stuff. I've seen bedazzled jewel cases and all that stuff, and yeah, right. Here's another point here. I think it's pretty important too. In a like manner, a horde of a dragon could destroy a campaign if the treasure of Smaug, the Hobbit, were to be used as an example of what such a trove should contain. Right? We did almost destroyed that particular story too, if Battle of Fire Armies, right? As an example of what such a trove should contain. Not so for the wise DM. He or she will place a few choice and portable items, some not so choice because they are difficult to carry off, and finally top, or rather bottom and top, the whole with mounds, piles, and layers of copper pieces, silver, etc. There will be much there, but even the cleverest of players will be more than hard put to figure out a way to garner the bulk of it after driving off, subduing, or slaying the treasure's guardian. Many other avaricious monsters are eagerly awaiting the opportunity to help themselves to the unguarded dragon horde. And news travels fast, right? The Hobbit was a good example of that. Who will stay behind to mine the coins while the rest of the party goes off to dispose of the better part of the loot? Not their henchmen. What a problem, right? Oh man, we've got all this stuff. The most valuable of it, we really can't carry out of here in an easy fashion. We have to prioritize stuff. Makes the characters start, the players, they got to think, what can we do to this? And another aside from that, right? Like he mentions in the very first part of that, all that money getting to town, what is that going to do to that world? What is that going to do to that local economy and stuff? And that's something that a lot of DMs don't think through. I show up in town with 5,000 gold pieces to a town that collectively amongst the whole town don't have 5,000 together. Bam, I just ruined that town's economy with that much money.
Yeah, absolutely. Inflation. You just devalued and debased their entire currency system, all of
Mm-hmm.
their trading, everything. And they're not going to be very happy with you, most likely.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, when everything is special, nothing is special.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's a good point. The henchman. Well, he'd probably be in PC now, and he'd be interested to follow you around and see what else you can dig up for him.
Yeah, the henchmen, it's henchmen, not man. So all 8 of the ones you left there to guard the treasure are now bandits when you
Some
come
of the
back.
town is happy
Yeah.
for the rich man.
In the event that generosity should overcome you and you find that in a moment of weakness you actually allow too much treasure to fall into the player's hands, there are steps which must be taken to rectify matters. The player characters themselves could become attractive to others seeking such gains. Excuse me. The local rulers will desire a share. Prices will rise for services in demand from these now wealthy personages, etc. All this is not to actually penalize success. It is a logical abstraction of their actions. It stimulates them to adventure anew and also maintains the campaign in balance. These rules will see to it that experience levels are not gained too quickly as long as you do your part as DM. I like things like taxes and tithes and fees and stuff like this. It drains the money away a little bit at a time. So even in town, when they're trying to spend their money, they need to use their heads.
Yes, yes, and I mean, I'm guilty.
Mm.
Excuse me, since it was up on the screen of having listened to the prior part while scanning ahead. I mean, I love this sentence. In the event that generosity should overcome you, and you find that in a moment of weakness you actually allowed too much treasure to fall into the player's hands. There's steps which must be taken to rectify matters. It's just brilliant writing, and it's fun.
Mm. Right. Some of my best magic items
NPC
my
adventure
characters have
groups.
had come from being attacked by NPC adventure groups. Yeah, that's possible. And that is next. Here, there's a good segue into my next segment of stuff from what we want to do. Here's Ghoulies got a good, well, you messed up. Here's what to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he tells you you messed up, but he also is apologetic for you by saying, "Hey, maybe it was generosity and you allowed things to get the best of you and
Mhm.
and whatnot, or didn't pay attention, and
Yeah.
now
Oh,
now
you
here's how you fix it."
yeah, you multiplied that horde by a factor of 10 and it should have just been a straight die roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, here's how you
Yes.
fix it. Yeah.
Hey, I'm listening still. I'm sorry, I have to take a quick little break because I have to check this meatloaf in the oven.
Oh,
And
man. Now you're making me hungry.
yeah,
All right, let me go ahead and get started on this placement of magic items paragraph stuff. Take off, do what you got
listening.
to do while I'll entertain these fellows here while you run off. Because clearly they're not here to see me. Yeah. All right, just as important to use forethought and consideration in placing valuable metals and other substances with monsters or otherwise hiding them in dungeon or wilderness, the placement of magic items is a serious matter. A thoughtless placement of a powerful magic items has been the ruination of many a campaign. Not only does this cheapen what should be rare and precious, it gives player characters undeserved advancement and powers them to become virtual rulers of all they survey. This is in part the fault of this writer, who deeply regrets not taking the time and space in D&D to stress repeatedly the importance of moderation. Powerful magic items were shown, after all, on the tables, and had a chance for random discovery of these items was given. So the uninitiated DM cannot be severely faulted for merely allowing what was set before him or her in the rules. Had the whole been prefaced with the admonition to use care and logic in placement of random discovery of magic items. Had the intent, meaning, and spirit of the game been more fully explained, much of the giveaway aspect of such campaigns would have willingly been squelched by the DMs. The sad fact is, however, that this was not done, so many campaigns are little more than a joke, something that other DMs jape at and ridicule, rightly so on the surface, because of the foolishness of player characters with astronomically high levels of experience and no real playing skill. These godlike characters boast and strut about with retinues of ultra powerful servants and scores of mighty magic items, artifacts, relics, adorning them as if they were Christmas trees decked out with tinsel and ornaments. Not only are such Monty Hall games a crashing bore for most participants, they are a headache for their DMs as well, for the rules of the game do not provide anything for such play. No reasonable opponents, no rewards, nothing. The creative DM can, of course, develop a game which extrapolates from the original to allow such play, but this is a monumental task to accomplish with even passable results, and those attempts I have seen have been uniformly dismal. So, the basic statement of this is yes, there are some good items and stuff on that list, right? But use some logic in whether or not player characters and stuff get out of them. Magic items have XP values. If you give out a magic item and the player claims that XP goes to the player, you could quickly exceed the skill level of a new player um, by just giving him one powerful item that skips him from first all the way to fifth level, bam, right away. He hasn't had a chance to um, get the skills and get the playing experience and stuff along the lines to handle that sort of thing that quickly. Gonzalo Lira's bar tab. Gonzalo, we started at page 90 of the first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, first edition. Yes, I should include the DMG page numbers on these for people. You're exactly right, and I had forgot to do so. We started on page 90. This particular piece, where am I at on this particular piece? Let me find let's see. What page is that one? Too fast. Oh, what? 90. Placement of magic items is 92. All right. And I'm pretty sure that when we go through and Doomswords does a replay on this, he's going to edit in page numbers for me. Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
Yes.
cool. No, not a problem. Yeah. Page 90 is where we start. Now we're up to page 92. Yeah, you're exactly right there, Gonzalo. I should have put those page numbers on here so that you could follow along a little easier on your own books. I just cut and pasted these into a document so it makes it a little easier for me to read them, even with my readers on.
Right. But I like
Yeah.
how you use the appropriate fonts and whatnot. And
Yeah. I
so,
wonder where I
well
got
done.
those from.
I don't know. Ancient Chinese secret.
Ancient Chinese secret. Good. The level of loot we've got in A3 is scaring the crap out of Paul. Yes, we've gotten some good loot out of A3. Although A3 was not written by Gary Gygax, so I'm pretty sure every third piece is not a cursed item. Yeah. So, just saying. And even though he's in the same thing of placement of magic items, he talks about another thing. Maybe he was on a rare rant or something on this when he started writing this out, right? Another nadir, another Gygaxian word, right? Another nadir of dungeon mastering is the killer dungeon concept. These campaigns are a travesty of the role-playing adventure game, for there is no development and identification with carefully nurtured player personae. In such campaigns, the sadistic referee takes unholy delight in slaughtering endless hordes of hapless player characters with unavoidable death traps and horrific monsters set to ambush participants as soon as they set foot outside the door of their safe house. Only a few of these killer dungeons survive to become infamous, however, as their participants usually tire of the idiocy after a few attempts at enjoyable gaming. Some lucky ones manage to find another, more reasonable campaign, but others, not realizing the perversion of their DM's campaign, give up adventure gaming and go back to whatever pursuits they followed in their leisure time before they tried D&D. Having said this, the most famous killer dungeon of all is Tomb of Horrors, written by Gary Gygax. So, AD&D means to set right both extremes. Neither the giveaway game nor the certain death campaign will be lauded here. The point of fact, the DMs who attempt to run such affairs will be drumming themselves out of the ranks of AD&D entirely. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons aims providing not only the best possible adventure game, but also the best possible refereeing of such campaigns. Bam, there's a little paragraph he throws in there. Don't make really nasty killer dungeons. Don't give away a lot of magic items, and then proceeds to do so in a dungeon. Yeah. Now, I have successfully gone through Tomb of Horrors with a was it a 12th level monk, and the only people that survived was my 12th level monk and the 11th level thief that was going with it. The rest of them had succumbed to it, but it was a fun game to run through. Although it feels like Tomb of Horrors is written to punish players, Gary said he was just trying to elevate the play and make it for the highest capable players. Yes, you have to really know what you're doing or really understand your character very well to make it through Tomb of Horrors. If you're careless, you're a murder hobo your way through it, it will eat you up and spit you out right away. So careful play, careful, thoughtful play. You can be successful in it, certainly.
Yeah, and there are very few. I mean, there are a couple, and they're mostly early on and stuff. But there aren't that many really gotcha kind of traps that you can't figure out how to get around. with discerning knowledge, right? I mean, I think the isn't the story that that Gary got mad. Yeah, I could be mistaken, but that Gary got mad. It might have been with the Temple of Elemental Evil or whatever. But Gary got mad at Rob because Rob defeated it by himself, and so then Gary sacked Rob's stronghold as revenge.
Okay.
So, proper play is you can make your way through that dungeon. And I've run it at conventions a couple of times with some changes because I knew that people would read the module and whatnot. But it's really not as deadly as it's made out to be, unless there's stupidity involved. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and some of these comments coming here, I had no idea when I played through it, no idea anything there. So even though I was running with a thief, and boy, this player was working his butt off to carefully not touch anything. He kept wanting to grab all these things, and we were just navigating our way through all of this and doing our best, knowing everything in here is going to kill us. Let's just try and get through to the end of this and get out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I mean in a lot of ways, but right as Cooley points out, they you think you win at the fake ending, and the actual lich
Mm-hmm.
perseveres.
Yeah.
And then it's a returning bad guy.
We won by getting out of there alive. We didn't get the lich. We
Yeah.
won by getting out of there alive. Yeah.
Right. Like there's nothing to say that you need to step through the green mouth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to say that
Mm-hmm.
that you need to fall victim to that protrusion pit trap thing in the beginning. There's nothing to say that you need to fall victim in the chapel. There's
Yeah.
nothing to say that that you need to slide down into the lava boiling oil type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You could simply recognize. Sorry, spoilers.
Okay, here
Yes.
we go. All right, we nip it in the bud. Okay, we no more said.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always change it up a bit. Not in the most important parts, but
Right.
it's fun. It's fun, and it's
Yes.
definitely a party module.
Oh, it requires a lot of cooperation, certainly. Let's see. Initial placement of magic items in a dungeon wilderness is a crucial beginning for a campaign. In such places, you must never, nice and bold. You should have put that in bold in there as well as big. Allow random determination to dictate the inclusion of any meaningful magic items. Where beginning/low level player characters are concerned, this stricture also applies to placement of any item of magic. Right? They need to work their way up in levels a little bit before they start acquiring magic items. All right. Furthermore, you need to never feel constrained to place even or allow any item in your campaign just because it is listed in the tables. Certainly, you should never allow multiplicity or possibly even duplication of the more powerful items. To fully clarify this, consider the development of a campaign as follows. Here's your example of now what you should do with magic items. In stocking the setting for initial play in the campaign, you must use great care. Consider the circumstances of the milieu and the number of player characters who will be active in it. Right? You may have only a bunch of player characters, but I would say include in this, are you going to have some opposing parties in this? Even though they're your NPCs, keep them kind of in mind in it too. Right? Then from the list of possible items, choose a selection which is commensurate with the setting and the characters involved. For example, you might opt for several potions, a scroll of one spell, a wand, and a pair of boots of Elvenkind, several +1 magic arrows, and a +1 magic dagger. I know Gonzalo absolutely hates +1 magic arrows. And these items will be guarded relatively weak creatures. You allow only weak items. The potions will be healing, heroism, levitation, or the like. Heroism actually kind of fairly powerful if you think about it.
It is quite good.
Yeah, the spell on the scroll will be low level, first or second. Hey, but even an extra first level spell handy to that low level caster is is invaluable. Yeah.
Especially if the low level caster is a magic user and you've used all the rules that we've discussed on
Hmm.
learning spells and scribing spells into your book, because now it's not just a level, it's kind of the uh, give a man a fish type of thing. The scroll is you're giving a man a fish. Him scribing it into his book is teaching a man to fish, you know?
Right. Oh, but say he's already got a um, magic missile memorized, and he finds another scroll of magic missile. That gives
True.
him one more spell that he can cast that day, which may make the difference in that particular adventure or something. Yeah. So it is an extremely valuable item. And if he doesn't have those spells and he hasn't reached his maximum limit already, now he's got some resources he can use. This is how they get the spells. That's what it says when we were talking about that section. They got to go find this stuff, and that's how they find it. If you decide
Yeah.
placement of the wand is appropriate, you will make certain that its guardian will use it in defense. Right? Yeah, I've got this wand of missiles, but it's depleted. I need to go get it charged now, right? And the instrument will have few charges left in any event with a power which is not out of line with the level of characters likely to acquire it. Right? The magical boots will be worn by a denizen of the area, while the magic arrows might not be used against adventurers. A +1 dagger will be. With all this in mind, you place the items in the countryside at the first upper level of the dungeon like setting. You never allow more than a single item or grouping, such as 3 magic arrows to a treasure, nor more treasures with magic items than 1 in 5 to 1 in 10, as this is an initial adventuring setting. So there's a few items in there. They're rare, but even at low levels, a rare magic item is still fairly valuable. Right. As the campaign grows and deeper dungeons are developed, you exercise the same care and placement of selected and balanced magic items. Of course, at lower levels of the dungeon, you have more powerful single items or groupings of disparate items, but they are commensurate with the challenge and ability of participants. Guardians tend to employ the items routinely, and others are hidden ingeniously to escape detection. Likewise, in the expanding world around the starting habitation, you place monsters and treasures, some with magic. You, the DM, know what is there, however, as you have decided what it is will be and have put it there for a purpose, whether for the overall direction of the campaign, some specific task, or the general betterment of a player characters to enable them to expand their adventuring capabilities because they are skillful enough to face greater challenges if they manage to furnish themselves with the wherewithal to do so. Right. In those instances where a randomly discovered monster has a nearby lair, and somehow this lair contains treasure, do not allow the dice to dictate a disaster for your campaign. Oh man, that troll had a +5 Holy Avenger. Eee. Well, okay, the third level paladin will pick that up. Well, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, right? If the result calls for some item of magic which is too powerful, one of which you are not certain of, or one of which you do not wish to include in the game at this time, you will be completely justified in ignoring it and rolling until a result you like comes up. Or you can simply pick a suitable item and inform the players that this is what they found. It is only human nature for people to desire betterment of their position. In this game, it results in player characters seeking ever more wealth, magic, power, influence, and control. As with most things in life, striving after is usually better than the getting, right? The chase is better than the catch. To maintain interest and excitement, there should always be some new goal, some meaningful purpose. It must also be kept in mind that what was unearned is usually unappreciated. What is gotten cheaply is often held in contempt. It is great responsibility to the Dungeon Master a campaign. If you do so with intelligence, imagination, and ingenuity and innovation, however, you'll be well rewarded. Always remember this when you select magic items for placement as a treasure. All right. So what do we got here? Some good comments popping up. Sadly, when you cast a spell out of your book, you can ruin other spells. It's great desperation play, though. I guess that was. Ah, But you need to refresh your spell book so you cast Magic Missile out of your book and then rescribe it with the new scroll so it doesn't fade. It's a joke. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can absolutely just cast right out of the spell book,
Right.
and
Can you believe Fingers is holding out us about the Ring of Free? Well, to be honest with you, he didn't know it was a Ring of Free action. Now, having put it
inexcusable
on,
stuff.
I may have described to him things. Well, I don't think he got into a situation where the Ring of Free action would have given itself away as to being what it was. I don't recall. Maybe when we were wearing it in that little acid slime pit. I don't remember. I have to think. I slept since then, so I can't remember. But as a dungeon master, if they haven't identified an item, I will give them some knowledge or clues if they're using it, and its circumstances would have revealed it. I would have give some clues out for it, and that's part of the discovery of it. Is they got it, figuring out how to use it, what it does. Figuring out magic items that way is always a lot cheaper than identify or sages. Yeah.
Yeah, and it should be encouraged, right? Very often, I've I've played with DMs as often as I've played, kind of, right? But often I've played with DMs. It's like, okay, well, I grab this magic sword or this magic armor, and I'm going to use it. At a certain point, the player is going to infer what the pluses are. And at the point that the player infers what the pluses are, or that it's magical at all, that should take the place of something like an identification spell, right? Because
Yeah.
I use it, and in the process of using it, if I have, as a player, have figured out how much it makes me better, which isn't very hard to do, and that's the way, like me and Dungeon Master D and the other people played in the past. If you picked up the weapon and you used it, you would eventually infer, often right away, what the pluses were on it.
Mhm.
Wands and stuff like that are, yeah. So anyway, you guys get the point. I like
Well,
this comment.
sages and stuff come into it, and when we were talking about, here's the comment about Bravolar's castle there. If you if you read it, yeah.
Yeah.
Sages are one way of doing it, but if you give your magic users something to do, your magic users are your knowledge arm of the party. Just because he's done with his spell that day doesn't mean he doesn't know anything else. He spent his whole life poring over books. He may have some clue. Give him a chance, even if it's a small one. Of, I think I've seen this before. Hey, that's a wand of magic missiles. I have no idea
Right,
I
right.
have no idea what the keyword is, but I know what that is, and now I know how, when I get back to town, where we can go to try and find the answers to how to activate it. Right? Give them you give them a little something, but you're not giving them the whole farm with it. You know.
Yes, yes, and that's something that I really appreciated about Forgotten Realms when it first came onto the scene, like Gray Box 86, 87, or whatever, is that lore would typically, or at least Ed Greenwood, encouraged DMs to add lore to even the simplest of magic items, and that gives you an out. It gives you the ability as the DM, or the thought in your head, to make everything a lot more interesting. But it also gives you sort of an out from requiring an identify for everything, because
Mhm.
when you have low level PCs and money is already scarce, buying 100 gold piece pearls over and over and over again is sort of takes away some of those resources and makes the PCs spend, in my
Yeah,
opinion, a little more than they should
it sure
have
does.
to.
And the one thing about identify, and we probably need to sit down. That is probably one of the most abused spells there is too. It is not
Yeah,
guaranteed. Not
right,
guaranteed.
right.
Right. There's some tweaks in it where even though you may identify something, you could identify it incorrectly. Right. You may not get all the powers out of it, or even though you're successful with a spell and you knock yourself out for 8 hours, you don't learn anything. It's built into that spell. I think it was I think Gary designed it exactly that way to make it really, really, really tempting, but very annoying. Learn what your items are, and if you know, if you want to try, if you want a magic user wants to give it a shot, here you go. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that's pretty much what I had for this particular week. This is our lead in to us talking about good dungeon design, placement of monsters, placement of coins, placement of treasures, leads into what's some good design for dungeons, design for adventures, what's some good keys, and that kind of thing. So I think you and I discussing that will spend less in the book and more of our. You are muted if you're trying to mention something, but yeah.
No, I was responding to family. Sorry.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So, right, level training is a good way to take money away from the characters and things like this. That's what all that stuff was built in there for, not to make it annoying or anything like this for that, but to take some of the funds away, so they had to go back to get more.
Yes, and that's assuming in the first place that you gave them enough money, and 100 gold pieces, depending on campaign, might be one of those mutable things that Gary talks about or whatever. But the actual thing is what 1,500 gold pieces per current level. So if I'm level 5, I need 7,500 gold pieces, assuming excellent role play, to
Mm-hmm.
advance to level 6. Um,
Right.
and that's you have to be willing as the DM and able to provide those characters. So you got 6 characters, 7,500 gold pieces. They're all level 5 or whatever. You got to give them 45,000 gold pieces that are expendable gold pieces in order to be able to train. So it's a balancing act,
Sure.
and it's important to consider as the DM whether or not you're capable of doing that.
So the way you fix that is you give them that one gem, that one 5,000 gold piece gem that nobody will buy from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you take a 30-40% cut, if you even have the
Yeah.
gold to convert it. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Come hit the like button if you like this session. Yes, please. Thanks. Like and subscribe to this stuff if
Absolutely.
you like the stuff that's going on. Go to Doomswords channel, like and subscribe his thing. I'm gonna toss the ball in his court for a condensed version, and we'll sit down and we'll answer questions and comments and stuff on this on his channel when he gets his sort of thing ready. My next plan, when him and I talk together next about this stuff, we're going to go over things like the random dungeon generator and building good dungeons and what makes sense and that kind of thing. And we'll cover that because we've had some questions on that. But if all
Yes, sir.
things go according to plan, I think next week I'm going to take a little bit of an aside next Thursday and talk about one of the orange books, the orange spine books, right? Still
Right
first
on.
edition D&D, but we'll talk a little bit about one of the orange spine books. I've
Yeah, and I'm
invited.
going to be sorry, I'll be doing some editing over the
Okay.
next day or two, to condense some of this stuff, and some of it will be live premiere, like we've talked about, and then some of it will be just stuff that we stick out there without having to worry about, because I'm a little behind, you know. But
Me
we've got a
too.
lot of valuable stuff that we've gone
Yeah,
through
there's
with this, and I deeply appreciate everyone's involvement.
2 videos that I want to make. I haven't gotten around to it. I've been wanting to do it since January. Was one on saving throws, just a quick little 5 to 8 minute blurb on saving throws and what that's all about and how useful that is.
Right
And
on.
another one I wanted to do, which plays into campaign development and stuff, is a good video on um, go over things like heraldry. Use heraldry in your campaign to add more for your player characters and stuff like that. I think it's a fantastic addition to any game. Is just real heraldry, using real shields and symbols, and come up with rules as to how characters can actually acquire them and that kind of thing. Makes for more domain play, more campaigning. So I'm put that stuff together. I'm behind as you are, if not more. So Thanks again for
Right
joining me
on.
on this. This has been a lot of fun. I'm continuing to enjoy the heck out of this, and I will be sorely disappointed when we run out of 1E stuff to talk about, which at this point probably not going to be for a good long time because there's plenty.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for compiling all this stuff. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for having me as a guest. Thank you for everyone who hears us chit chat and whatnot. You're all much appreciated in my book.
Yeah. Thanks again for coming on out. I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose so you can go
Yes,
back there
sir.
and eat more of the paint off the walls, and I'll limit this stream and stuff,
Have a
and
good night.
yeah, good night. All right. Thanks for joining us here on the Great Old Ones channel for more talk. Let me put my little banner up there. If you like this stuff, please like and subscribe. Click the bell icon for notification. Leave comments and stuff. Go back and comment on this later. Send us stuff if you want us to talk about things. Send questions and stuff. We love to talk about this. We'll read sections of the book, talk about these things. If you've got specific things, hey, what about this? Let us know. We'll cover it. Take a look at some of the other stuff that we've already covered. Maybe we may have answered some of that stuff. If you like, buy me a coffee to help me support this. I'm pretty sure that Doomswords has his own buy me a coffee. The more money we make with that, the less money we have to go to actual real work for, and we can sit here and BS with you guys about all this fun stuff. All right, so thanks again for joining here on the Great Old Ones channel. I'm going to cut this loose. Please like and subscribe, and come back next Thursday for more.